You're welcome back. Commercial banks will by next month have details on plans to increase their minimum capital requirement. This is because the committee set up to engage industry players is getting ready to present its report from next week. But as George Riafe reports, the move could impact on cost of credit and the number of banks currently in operation.
Sources say initial engagement with most other players in the banking industry suggest they agree to an increase in the minimum capital for commercial banks in the country. This has been influenced by the fact that most banks are still struggling to finance big transactions and the fact that a lot of huge deals in Ghana are all being taken up by firms outside the country. Joy Business is learning that most commercial banks are also for the capital increase because of the Bank of Ghana's decision not to allow them to grant loans beyond a certain fraction of their minimum capital. Sources say their concern for now is how the capital increase should be implemented and what should be the right capital levels. Whilst some are for a gradual review, others subscribe to a one-off increment. Joy Business is learning that the Bank of Ghana is likely to settle on 500 million Ghana cedis as the new minimum capital requirement for banks. The regulator has also maintained that it is prepared to give banks time to meet the new capital requirement, but rules out giving any waivers either to a foreign or a local bank. Currently, commercial banks need to have at least 120 million Ghana cedis before they can operate in the country. For some, the increase could result in a significant reduction in the about 33 commercial banks in operation. Others are of the view that because most of the banks could have too much capital on their books because of the increase, they would be forced to go out and lend more to businesses. The development, together with the expected pickup in the economy from next year, could also reduce the cost of credit in the country.
Meanwhile, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Abdul Nasiru Isahaku, says a decision on how much will be required by commercial banks in a new capital requirement will depend on the outcome of the committee set up for the purpose. He stated this in an interview with Joy Business in Accra.
But the committee is doing its work now, and once the committee finishes its work, it will make its recommendations to top manager of the bank, and following that we hold consultation with all relevant stakeholders and take the appropriate decision in recapitalizing, announcing plans for recapitalization. I have to wait for the recommendations of the committee that's currently working.
And away from that, the Minister for Petroleum, Emmanuel Ama-Kofi-Boa, says government will continue to work with the oil and gas companies to ensure they invest part of their revenues generated towards improving livelihoods of the inhabitants of host communities. There have been several criticisms. Oil and gas production is not benefiting residents of the host communities within the Western region. Correspondent Kweku Osupepra spoke with the minister, that's the Emmanuel Ama-Kofi-Boa, the MD for U.S. Oil Exploration Company Hess Corporation, Frank McKay, and the CEO of GNPC, Alex Mould.
Implemented by GNPC and partners. We see Cosmos, for example, providing water along the coastal communities. Today, if you start from the coastal community, you see Cosmos water all over the place. You see Talo helping with a lot of different intervention, whether in water, whether in school infrastructure, labs. And you see Hess has been very consistent with GNPC, providing basic educational scholarship, and it's having real impact. We are now seeing 95% of those people who took the scholarship passing to the university. It means that we've hit a nerve. And this scholarship is really making a difference. And that's why I think you see Awula and Nananum today celebrating this very, very important initiative. So I want to thank GNPC and Hess for this effort.
We always want to be a good neighbor in the communities where we work. And so sometimes we're fortunate and we make big discoveries and large production. But either way, sometimes we have to leave later, but either way we want to be able to make a contribution to the communities where we operate. Okay? And that's why we wholeheartedly support the scholarship program with GNPC.
Well, I just wanted to add to what my minister was saying and what Frank was saying. I think the basis is forming a good relationship at the beginning when we are negotiating with them. We have to understand our partners to understand what exactly they want to do in the country. We also have to let them know what is important to the community that we're working with. And that is why HES and GNPC's relationship has been one that has been very fruitful. Like I said, we're working to ensure that we can start production very shortly. And I think that working with HES and the minister to get the POD signed, possibly next year, we'll start a very long and fruitful relationship, and we'll be seeing much more being done in education and health and other areas.
Until staying within the upstream low petroleum sector, an ECOWAS local content policy will soon be formulated to provide the regional bloc with a document that will optimize local participation in the petroleum and mining industries of member countries. This according to the president of the association, according to the chief executive officer of the association, Seth Chuma, will broaden the scope of the industries in the sub-region. Oil and minerals producing West African economies have not seen much contribution from the sectors over the years. The AGI CEO made the revelations at this year's Local Content and Investment Summit organized by the association in Accra.
The 5th edition of the AGI Local Content and Investment Summit is under the theme Local Content Development in Ghana, the Journey So Far. This year's edition is an extended version of a previous conferences organized by the AGI due to the important nature of the sectors being considered. Various countries in the West African sub-region have different local content regulations binding their oil and gas sector. These statutes have, however, not yielded much results when it comes to indigenous participation. According to the Association of Ghana Industries, investment into the region must be interlinked, therefore necessitating the formulation of a strong document for ECOWAS to enhance local participation in the West African sub-region. Chief Executive Officer of the AGI, Seth Chuma, explains to Joy Business the need for such a policy.
Last year or so, we're planning something like that. And as he mentioned, in subsequent programs, we are going to look at how do we develop local content for the entire West African sub-region. You know, the international companies that come here, when they enter the country, they want to be able to have access to the larger market. And you notice that within the West Africa sub-region, apart from Ghana that is discovered oil, of course, Nigeria has always been there, so they are the big brothers. They are already producing oil for years now. But the other countries are also discovering oil. Cote d'Ivoire has discovered oil, Togo has discovered oil, and several other countries are coming on board, Liberia also. So we think that at some point, when these international companies come here, for them to do big business and also bring our members on board, they need to look at local content in ECOWAS region as a whole, because if Ghana has its own local content policies and laws, and a company enters here, going to another country becomes a challenge. Meanwhile, you need big investors in some of these sectors. In the oil and gas industry, it's a highly capital-intensive business. Same in the mining sector. So if they enter into the country or to any of the ECOWAS countries, and they can conveniently do business in other countries, then the big capital will flow in.
On his part, a member of the Public Interest Accountability Committee, Kwame Jantwa, thinks a regional local content policy will be well implemented with the collaboration of all private sector players. He urged Ghanaian entrepreneurs to take advantage of the opportunities available.
Since oil and gas is a finite product, is it too early to plan for opportunities to survive beyond resource depletion so as to either build capacity in Ghanaian companies or strengthen existing companies to be able to take advantage of those opportunities that will arise from decommissioning in the next 25 to 30 years? Or leave it till then, and if we do, what are the implications? My brothers and sisters, we have done it before. It's not as if Ghana hasn't done local content before. By 1964-65, we were producing our own radio sets. We were producing our own fridges. We were producing our own matches. We were producing our own tiles. We were producing our own aluminium pots and pans. We were producing our own roofing sheets. We've done it before.
The two-day conference will also help to improve the performance of chief executives of the mining, oil and gas sectors in maximizing their gains.
Meanwhile, the Ghana Petroleum Commission is developing an internship program to help upgrade the knowledge and skills of prospective graduate job seekers in the oil and gas sector. This is part of initiatives by the Commission to encourage international oil companies to implement the local content law passed by Parliament. Director of Special Services at the Petroleum Commission, Kweku Boateng, disclosed this to Joy Business in an interview at the sidelines of the 5th Local Content and Investment Conference.
So the Commission started discussion with the industry partners, the IOCs and the service providers, as to how can we bridge the experience gap to facilitate entry of Ghanaian graduates to the industry. And we came up with this program, the GASIP, Ghana Upstream Industry Internship Program. And the purpose of this program is to afford young Ghanaian graduates the requisite experience and training that will equip them with the skills to enter into the oil and gas industry.
When is this program earmarked to start, to begin?
The program is far advanced. The people have started. We started in the middle of this year, whereby we held various examinations in 4 centers in Accra, here, Kumasi, Takoradi, and in Tamale. And we have very big participation, several hundreds. So we are hoping our target is to ensure that the program commences early next year.
So what becomes of those who are not able to get the opportunity?
Well, certainly, the available vacancies are quite limited. We cannot get opportunity for everybody. This is a pilot program beginning this year. We are hoping that depending on the success that we make, and the growth of the industry, we will be able to expand it to include other people. But those who cannot get it, there are other training opportunities where the Commission is working with various institutions, like the Takoradi JTT Jubilee Technical Training Center, also train technical people.
What's the financial commitment of the Petroleum Commission into this program?
Financial commitment. One, the Commission itself, what the program, that since it's internship program, we are in discussion with the operators for see if some stipendium can be provided, but it's not finalized yet.
This is the marketplace. We're taking a short break. We'll be back after this. Thanks for watching. Welcome back. Now, some major labor unions are planning a labor shutdown next month over what they say is government's failure to transfer 5% of their Tier 2 monthly deduction into the account of their own scheme. Labor unions, which accuse government of failing to implement a high court ruling directing the state to transfer the monies, say they will go ahead with a strike on November 15 if government fails to address their concerns.
There was a standing problem far back 2014 and the second tier pension related to the implementation of the reforms in the pension sector and to allow for the operation of the 3-tier pension scheme.
The 12 labor unions include the Ghana Medical Association, NAGRAT, CLOSAG, TEU and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers embarked on strike over the same issue in October 2014. Government, however, dragged the unions to court. But both parties later agreed on an out-of-court settlement, which was later accepted by the High Court. By the ruling, effective April 1, 2016, government is supposed to transfer 5% Tier 2 monthly deduction directly to custodian banks and also ensure that the National Pension Regulatory Authority transfer funds currently being held in the Temporary Pension Fund account at the Bank of Ghana. The unions say government is yet to implement any of the court's decision. Chairman of the unions, Isaac Bampo Ado, said strike is the only action to drive home their demand.
As the second tier of pension scheme is by law a defined contribution scheme, it is the yield on investment over time that will determine the level of the lump sum payout. Thus, the delay in transfer of funds to the various schemes for almost 7 years is going to affect adversely the level of lump sum or gratuity a retired officer is likely to receive under the second tier. The forum would wish to state that if by 15th November 2016, government has not complied with its obligation under the settlement judgment, we will have no option than to embark on a massive nationwide industrial.
The forum also cast doubt over how much is currently being contained in the temporary pension fund account at the Bank of Ghana. According to the unions, government is yet to come clear with specific figure.
We are saying that the account must be properly audited. It is only when the independent arbiter, that is the auditor, comes in to authenticate figures that all of us can agree that this is the real figure that must be accepted. So we have always stated that MPRA, as the authority that oversees this pension scheme, must make sure that the funds are properly audited, and then unions or labor is properly informed that this is what is in the temporary pension fund account. There and then that everybody can accept that this is the true position of the fund. Other than that, whatever somebody comes to say is something that the person is saying out of his own thinking. Until the auditors come out with a report, it becomes very difficult for us to accept such figures.
Meanwhile, Employment and Labour Relations Minister Haruna Idrisu has been responding to some of the concerns of the labour unions.
There was a standing problem far back 2014 in the second-tier pension related to the implementation of the reforms in the pension sector and to allow for the operation of the three-tier pension scheme, and the 12 unions constituting themselves in a forum. You recall, even had to embark on a major strike action around August 2014. The parties then agreed to settle the matter amicably out of court. I do admit and accept that there are outstanding issues with the implementation, but we've come very, very far and very close to a comprehensive settlement. Part of the problem was them, that is, I'm referring to the forum, we appoint jointly custodians, fund managers and scheme administrators. That have been done. They work very well with the National Pension Regulatory Authority. They have accordingly referred the and I have conveyed the appropriate instructions to the appropriate institutions, the Ministry of Finance and to the Concerned Accountant General. Let me, however, assure them and assure the public that government will not do anything to jeopardize the future income security and retirement security of any worker.
A member of the Finance Committee in Parliament, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, has filed an urgent question demanding the Trade and Industry Minister, Dr. Ekos Piu-Gabra, to tell the House steps being taken to protect the textile and cement manufacturing sectors. Local cement manufacturers have for some time now not been happy with Dr. Piu-Gabra for unfairly allowing cement importers to operate to the detriment of their operations and for illegally permitting a Chinese cement company to start operations in Ghana.
An urgent question asking the Minister of Trade and Industry steps being taken to protect the textile and the cement manufacturing sectors, given the concerns raised by local manufacturers against unfair trade practices. We are aware that the textile sector has virtually collapsed because of cheap Chinese imports. We've not heard of any policy measures being put in place to ensure that our local manufacturers are assisted to grow their business. We know that local manufacturing creates employment and helps grow the economy. So if we hear and people will invest and government will not take any step to support the local manufacturers, then obviously there's no such incentive to engage in manufacturing in this country, there will be no opportunity for job creation. Therefore, there is a need for the minister to treat it as an urgent matter to address the House on what steps are there for the ministry to address these concerns. Then the second major one is the cement manufacturers. We've read in the dailies, we've heard on the airwaves, there are serious concerns on other importation by Chinese importers and from Dangote. The issue is that although we have ECOWAS trade liberalization that allows free movement of goods and persons, but if you go to Nigeria, Dangote is receiving incentives.
Now, sound quite weird upon hearing it for the first time. Who would leave their homes in this part of our world just to take tea outside? Believe it or not, the tea bar is becoming popular and is Ghana's first. And a repeat of the Joy Business van, Darrell Kwao headed to Osu to meet Dedo Azu, the entrepreneur behind the tea bar.
Hi Joy Business Van, my name is Dedo Azu and I own this little fabulous space you see here. It's called Tea Bar and all we serve are teas from all over the world.
Dedo owns what is becoming one of Akwa's favorite hangouts.
Hey. Hi! See you. That's nice. Nice to see you.
See you.
Welcome to Tea Bar again. You're welcome.
Dedo thinks of herself as a creative person and very entrepreneurial. She knew she'd own a restaurant or something like that, but the tea bar, that was an accident.
I really love tea and I really love people, but there was a festival that I was supposed to send sunglasses to, because that's what I do originally. I designed sunglasses, so I said to myself, you know what? At a festival, people don't really spend too much money on glasses and all that, but they want something to drink and they want something to eat. So I decided that I would make tea, because I had a cup of tea in my hand. So we went to the festival and it was a big hit. I was so surprised. It was a big hit indeed. So I said, oh, people like it. So I kept doing festivals for about 3 years. Festivals, little shows and all that. And then eventually I got this little space and I decided, why don't we start the first tea bar in Ghana? And that's what we did.
That was 6 months ago, and now her little space has become a preferred place for people from all walks of life. But what's in the tea?
The nice thing about tea bar is we source teas from all over the world. So we pick them up. We have teas from Egypt, we have teas from Ethiopia, America, France, China. So we collect teas from all over. And then depending on our mood, we make the tea. So sometimes when we feel very happy, we make things with strawberries and raspberries. And sometimes when it's a little cold outside or when it's a bit rainy, we make lemongrass and all that. So yeah, that's how it came about.
Still beats me. Why tea?
Why? Because you know what? People need an alternative. We're tired in Ghana. We're really tired of just going to the same places and having the same things, like drinking Coca-Cola, Fanta, or Sprite. And people are always asking, "Do you have anything else?" And even fruit juices don't cut it. So this is nicely brewed. And then this beautiful made in Ghana lemongrass tea goes to the customer. Hi, Jasmine. Hi. How's everything? How are you doing? Good. Yeah, okay. I am very well. I'm very well. Yeah? Okay. Well, enjoy your tea. I know this is one of your favorite teas. And I made it with a lot of love, so it's all yours. You're welcome.
And well, maybe it's true. People are looking for other alternatives. And for Dedo, it's really working for her.
To be honest, it's been a big success. I love how it's turned out. And now people are going to all these different restaurants and asking for iced tea. But nobody makes it as good as we do here at Tea Bar.
All right, time to chill out, time to have some fun. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Joy Business Bank. It's brought to you by Busy, making good things happen, as well as EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. Join us next week.
All right, so you get yourself an alternative and stop taking the soft drinks. Go for tea at the tea bar. And that wraps up the program for this afternoon. Thank you very much for staying, and do join us again same time tomorrow for another interesting package. My name is Emmanuel Apuachi. Good afternoon.